power to transform this world. We can end crime and do one thing: share. Let's share our wisdom, share our time, share our talents, share our finances, but most of all, let's share our love. This is the Female Solution. Join me, Naima Latif, every morning, 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. Central Standard Time, as we bring you stimulating discussions about the issues affecting our lives. If you're listening online at www.blogtalkradio.com/the-female-solution, press the blue button that says follow and get our daily topics every morning directly to your email and your smartphone. Hi, I'm Naima Latif, executive producer of the Female Solution radio show. We invite you to call in 515-605-9325 and participate in this daily think tank as we examine the challenges we face and develop solutions that restore peace and harmony. We are global transformers, changing the world from the way it is to the way it should be. We are one. Wherever we live on this earth, we are one human family. On behalf of our team of radio hosts, I'd like to extend a greeting to all the members of our family, whenever and wherever you may be listening around the world. To our family in China, ni hao. In India, namaste. In Japan, konnichiwa. In Korea, annyeonghaseyo. In Russia, здравствуйте. In Germany, guten Tag. In Poland, dzień dobry. In France, bonjour. In Spain, hola. In Italy, ciao. In Egypt, ahlan wa sahlan. In Ghana, akwaba. In Nigeria, peleo. In South Africa, sawubona. In Senegal, Bangladesh. In Kenya, jambo. In Israel, shalom. In Pakistan, Afghanistan, and Saudi Arabia, assalamu alaikum. Greetings, and may peace be upon you all. You believe in freedom, and not rest until it's come. We believe in freedom, that's why and not let me talking to you. We believe in freedom, and not until we give it up like men. Black mother song, is that a more than the killing of white men? White mother brown, do you believe
All right. Now let's see.
Voice? Okay. I just cut off the phone. And the noise is still there. So I need to cut off the computer and call back in on the phone. Will that work? Okay. So let me just cut off the computer.
The Female Solution Global Radio TV Show invites you to an invigorating conversation with our team of hosts Monday through Friday, 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. Central Time. Start your week with Monday Morning Mindfulness with Zelda Speaks. Tuesdays, Self-Cell Care with Jody Susan. Wednesdays, Repairing Broken Families with Naima Latif and co-host Kareem Hamid. Thursdays, Soulful Solutions with Dr. Debbie Green. And Fridays, Health and Well-Being with Beata. Saturdays, tune in 12 noon to 2 p.m. Central Time. First Saturday, Success Strategies with Jana. Second Saturday, Wendy Williams Esquire on relationships. Third Saturday, Move Around with Deborah. And fourth Saturday, Wisdom with Mamadee. Join us Sundays, 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. Central Time for Soul Purpose Healing with Beata. Call in and comment 515-605-9325. Press 1 to speak to the host and be a part of the solution. And we are back with Wisdom with Mamadee. And as we work out some technical issues to bring her face to face, we're going to bring her up on the live line and give her an opportunity to speak to you. And here we are. The illustrious voice of Mamadee. Yes, we hear you loud and clear.
Well, hallelujah. Greetings to everyone, and thank you for working through our glitches. Our glitches. Whenever it's going to be a really juicy program, then we have these glitches. So that means stay tuned. I have this banner that I brought back from Ghana, and I'm just going to read something to you. It says, "From Africa to the New World of the Americas, Portugal, Spain, Dutch, and English colonies supplied with free labor of captured." Now, this got too much noise there. Anyway, from Africa.
Well, let's see. Well, make sure you speak directly into your phone, since that's the audio source right now.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. And I'm going to pull up the as soon as you get the banner situated, I'm going to pull up the visual image of the banner if you wanted to point the camera toward that. All right. Let's see. And here's the banner. Wait a minute. Yeah, there we are. The banner from Ghana, which has some very powerful images there. And
the banner.
There we are.
Anyway.
Oh, perfect. Now
showing the banner.
So now there's no buzzing.
Showing the banner. I'll just tell you about what I want the banner to say, okay?
Great. And we can see you perfectly, so that works fine. So there's no buzzing. So
I just want to read what's on the banner because it relates to our topic. So I'll go until 12:30. It's almost half of an introduction time. But anyway, from Africa to the New World of the Americas, Portugal, Spain, Dutch, and English colonies supplied with free labor of captured, kidnapped, and enslaved human beings from the African continent and reclassified. I want you to hear that word. Reclassified as African, Negro, colored, etc., which terms they had never used to identify themselves previously. So I really want you to get that. African, Negro, colored, etc., which terms they had never used to identify themselves previously. So why is that important? That is important because, this is very hard. I'm going to try to hold this camera up.
You might be able to prop it up, but great image of you.
Yeah, but what I want to say about this is because our topic today is identifying ourselves, reclaiming our glory, and demanding reparations. Now, reclaiming our glory. We're talking about parents of civilization. We're not just talking about boys and girls. Parents of civilization. It is the parents that tell the children what to do and not the other way around. I don't know if any of you all saw The Lion King, but if you saw The Lion King, you really saw our truth. Simba was supposed to be the king, but he thought he was a hyena and he was around eating grasshoppers and things. But once he discovered who he was and took his rightful place, everything on the planet Earth went into its rightful place. And that is what has to happen with us as a people. And I realize we've gotten accustomed to these names: Negro, Black, colored, people of color. I got a whole litany list here because we have to identify ourselves. If you've ever gone abroad and you have a passport, your passport does not say Negro, colored, Afro American, none of that. It says America. We claiming a continent when people living on the continent do not claim the continent. I really want you to get that. The people living on the continent, Ghana, Kenya, Liberia, South Africa, these are on the continent, but they don't call themselves after the continent. They do not claim the whole continent. We're the only people on the planet, as the most honorable Elijah Muhammad would say, the lost found, and one of the cruelest things that was ever done. You can find that out in the June 18th, 2009 United States Senate apology for enslavement and unjust laws of segregation. Now, I don't know what happened here. Oh, there. I was back
Yes.
for a second, and
Yes.
then gone again.
Yeah, you might have
I
hit a
tell
button to
you,
turn your camera off. If you can figure out
yeah.
where on your phone that button is. But we can still hear you though. Yeah, as
So
soon as you
anyway,
it'll open.
anyway, what the former president Bill Clinton and George Bush said, the vestiges of in slavery and the 88 years of Jim Crow genocide still exist today. Okay.
Right.
See it
Oh, there you are. Okay.
and a little bit of myself. Anyway,
All right, there we are. We're back.
we have denial. We don't enslave. Yeah, that was over with. Or that's negative. You know, the Black History Bible book. And the reason I say it's a Black History Bible book because the hero in that Bible book is a woolly-haired man with bronze-colored feet to match his bronze-colored face. That is our history. We have in America pending now something called the Crown Act, and it's in existence so that Black women can uh, get housing, employment, and other kind of services that other human beings have without being judged by the texture of their hair. It impacts housing, employment, and education. So they have to have this creating an environment so that we can wear our hair uh, the way it grows out of our scalp. Because we are the only people on the planet that have the hair like lamb's wool. All the white people and Asian people and Latino people and Native American people, they all have straight hair. Goats and kids have straight hair. You can go to a goat farm because they still have goats, and they can you can get goat cheese and goat milk, and they still have lambs and sheeps. You can get lamb chops, and you can get wool from the sheep. So these animals are not like dinosaurs. They still exist today, and that because they still exist, I will repeat: kids and goats have straight hair, and all the other people that come from the original people, they have straight hair. We're the only ones with this texture of hair. And in 2022, we have to have a congressional law passed just so we can wear our hair the way it grows out of our scalp because of the discrimination against our hair. You can't wear it in braids unless you're Bo Derek, a white woman that decides to braid her hair. And that was a worldwide upset. But because of the texture of our hair, we have been braiding. And so, uh, as I said, the most honorable Elijah Muhammad said one of the worst things that they ever did to us as a people is to deny us the knowledge of self. And we cannot continue claiming a continent. We must claim the country that was built on with the blood, the sweat, the tears, and the torture of our ancestors. And we have to revisit history. You got to go to the root. And when we go to the root of our historic experience, then we can go from there. So we've got these our theme for today, and our guest that we have lined up is Cam Howard. Our last segment from 12:30. I mean from 1:30 to 2 p.m. And then our um, Cecilia Johnson. Uh, I guess she's a naturalized citizen in America but now, but I think that she's from, I'm not sure if it's from Haiti or Jamaica, but she's been in America quite a while. And our first guest coming up is Kojo. Now, for those that were with us last month, there was a hearing, and we were trying to get these names straight. And I believe he was on Zoom. And so he's agreed to be our first guest from 12:30 to 1 p.m. But getting back to our theme, um, name identifying ourselves. Do you know that your name is your first sense of peoplehood and selfhood? You say my name. That's you, different from anybody else on the planet. My name. If you're a child, you don't own your room. You don't own the clothes that are in your room because these are all things at the discretion of your parents. But your name is like ownership of your soul, ownership of your personage. And we've all seen, most of us have seen Roots, Kenta Kante, and how they tortured him into saying his name was not Kenta Kante. His name was Toby. And the reason they had to torture him into taking that name is because he comprehended the meaning of that name. That once they took that away, they were going to be taken away his personage. And he just wouldn't, he was fighting it to the death until one of the older slaves said to him, "We know your name. just say your name is Toby. We know you're Kenta Kante. Just it's just best for you to be alive. We know that you're about to be beaten to death if you don't accept this identity. And yes, it will be giving up your personage. And he just couldn't, as Reverend Dr. Prophet King said, don't let anybody take your manhood. Well, when it comes to black men, when it comes to black people, women, and children, they took our personage. And they admitted that in that June 2009 United States Senate and Congress apology for slavery and 88 years of Jim Crow segregation laws. So yes, they took your manhood on purpose. And on purpose, you've got to take your manhood back. It is just time for us to take our rightful place as parents of civilization and not the boys and girls. All the history is there. The archaeological finds, the oldest bones that they ever found was a African woman on the continent of Africa. The DNA testing, you could only get all the different races from the darkest race. And that has always been the big threat. White people can mate with Asians and Latinos and blacks all day long. Nothing will ever get whiter. They will not change Asian people into white. They will not change Indians people into white. And don't even try changing black people into white. But we, because we are the parents of civilization, it's all going to be black like me. Because the black is where the brown comes from. And all the other colors, is black is the dominant color. And everybody else has to kill up everybody on the planet in order to have one race of people. If white people want one race, they got to kill up all of the Asians and Latinos and blacks and everybody. If Asians wanted that, they'd have to kill up other people. Native Americans would have to kill up other people. Only the black race can make love and have one race of people. Just by making love. Everybody else has to make war to do it. And they have just make love and do it. You know, my 2-year-olds, they had salt, and I was teaching them how to make perfect circles in the fun way. You don't just sit them down and say, well, practice these, write 100 circles 100 times. Now I put a little salt in a little, one of those little throwaway glass sample containers. And I gave them a piece of chalk. Chalk was different colors. So they took this white chalk, and if they added the red, the chalk going around and around and around, it got to be deep red. Or if they took the yellow crayon around and around and around. And I remember one of my students said, my hand is getting tired, but my color is coming up. The more he colored, the darker the color became. He said, yeah, my hand is tired, but my color is coming up. But the point is, white never created anything, and everything wiped white out. So this is what Dr. Cress Wilson is talking about when she's talking about annihilating all the other people and what it's about that we have to keep you under subjugation or we'll get wiped out. Well, the point of the matter is he should have thought about that on March 25th, when they had the 21st anniversary of the International Day of Remembrance for the victims of slavery and the transatlantic slave trade, and showing respect for those who suffered and died under the enslavement system. And they said that 90%, it's either 90 or 95% of all the children born to the enslaved people were 12 and 13 years old.
Wow.
That was the average age. And 80% of those children born were born to slave owners. So because he could not keep his hands off the slave woman, he kept reproducing colored people. He kept reproducing our numbers. And he just couldn't resist. We got to get them fresh. As soon as that menstrual cycle starts, at 12, 13. So anyway, we are going to go into our break in a minute, but our theme is identifying ourselves, and the names that we have to select from are Africans in America, African Americans, Afro Descendant, Moorish Americans, ADOS, American Descendants of Slaves, NAAs, Indigenous Native American Africans, Black American, people of color, American African, Afro American, Asiatic, Negro, Black, and Liberian. So those are the names, but as I read on the banner, Negro, Black, colored, these names were never ours before enslavement, in particular Negro, which means black in Spanish. So the founding father of the transatlantic slave trade, those Spaniards, that's where we got that name from. So it is very important that we name ourselves. This country derives its power from the consent of the governed, and we never consented, and our ancestors never consented to be kidnapped and held as a movable property thing for 246 years, to be handed down to the slave owners' children, guaranteeing generational wealth for them and locking us into generational poverty. So we didn't consent to that. And if you derive your power from the consent of the governed, and we didn't consent to it, then you can't tell us what to do. So we are actually sovereign people when we decide to name ourselves and claim who we say we are. And I think it's about time that we did that. And for you all who want to skip over your roots, no tree grows without roots. So we're going to take our break, and Kojo will be joining us when we come back.
All right, we'll be right back. Stick and stay. Don't stray away. We'll be back in just one moment. And if you're listening online and want to join this conversation, give us a call, 515-605-9325, and press 1 when you're ready to speak. That'll light your number up on the switchboard, and we'll come right to you and get your thoughts. You're listening to and watching Wisdom with Mamadee, and we'll be right back after this quick break. So stay with us.
Hi, I'm Barbara.
I'm Cheryl.
And I'm Naima. We're 3 Black moms.
And in case you didn't notice the resemblance, we're also 3 sisters.
We're going to be coming to you every week, sharing our successes and our mistakes as we navigate our lives as moms, wives, sisters, daughters, and of course,
Black women in today's world.
We'll talk about it all: race, politics, religion, economics, culture, and we'll take a look at everything from whether or not to use corporal punishment to how do you teach your children about sex.
Look for our upcoming book, Growing Up Charles. It's a personal story about our lives growing up in Maple Park on Chicago's South Side. I'm Barbara.
I'm Cheryl.
And I'm Naima. We're three Black moms. Follow us on Facebook and subscribe to our YouTube channel, Three Black Moms.
Hi, this is John Alexander.
And I'm Naima Latif. Meet people like you who are making a positive difference in the world.
Big difference.
Watch us every day on The Media Connection at www.youtube.com/The Media Connection TV.
YouTube it. We'll see you soon.
There are people who choose to make a positive difference in the world. Our job is to bring you their stories to motivate you to do the same. Join us each week, host John Alexander and Naima Latif, as we bring you the educators, entertainers, elected officials, religious leaders, and community activists whose works are transforming this world. Find out how you can make a difference too. Be inspired. Watch The Media Connection.
Oh, you know, you can tell.
The Female Solution Global Radio TV Show invites you to an invigorating conversation with our team of hosts Monday through Friday, 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. Central Time. Start your week with Monday Morning Mindfulness with Zelda Speaks. Tuesdays, Self-Cell Care with Jody Susan. Wednesdays, Repairing Broken Families with Naima Latif and co-host Kareem Hamid. Thursdays, Soulful Solutions with Dr. Debbie Green. And Fridays, Health and Wellbeing with Beata. Saturdays, tune in 12 noon to 2 p.m. Central Time. First Saturday, Success Strategies with Jana. Second Saturday, Wendy Williams Esquire on relationships. Third Saturday, Move Around with Deborah. And fourth Saturday, Wisdom with Mamadee. Join us Sundays, 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. Central Time for Soul Purpose Healing with Beata. Call in and comment 515-605-9325. Press 1 to speak to the host and be a part of the solution.
I guess you can. Can you hear me?
All right. We are back and we hear you loud and clear. And Kojo is with us. All he has to do is just step to his camera. And
You're
so yes. So as soon as he comes back to his camera.
Am I breaking up?
Hey, Naima, I'm here.
No, you're also colored. Yes, we know. I know you're not breaking up. We can hear you. So far, your voice is fine.
Hey, I'm here.
Yes.
Am I mute?
I can you hear me?
No, we
Yeah.
hear you. Mamadee's visual image
It's breaking up.
breaking up. But we're gonna so
I hear you.
we
You're
have
breaking it
Kojo
up.
on the screen, and we have Mamadee, your image disappeared, and in a little while we can.
And I'm breaking up.
Yeah, we can hear your voice.
Oh, okay.
But you can go ahead. And,
Kojo, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
yes,
Kojo, are you there?
I got one of my nieces here. Oh, look here. She's from Tennessee. Look at her.
Hello, how are you all?
I told you I got some beautiful nieces.
Yeah, I had to come see them.
Well, I'm glad you did.
Sorry for the invasion of your time.
Oh well, hey, since you're in front of the screen, you might as well be a
Matter
guest.
of fact, you know what? Her father and I served in Korea together.
Kojo, are you there?
Hey,
Yes.
Mama,
So,
how you doing?
Kojo is introducing us to his niece, who her father and Kojo served
Can
together
you hear
in
me?
The war. Yes, can you hear us?
If you can hear me, then we can just go on.
He was 7.
Because I'm getting
18,
breaking up.
So they got a weekly program for the solution. What's the name of the program?
This is the female solution, and we
can you hear?
Live. Yes, we hear you. Can you hear us?
Yeah.
Yes.
I
great.
hear everybody. Yeah.
Wonderful. So, Mamadee,
there?
We may have a little bit of a technical issue with Mamadee's visual image, but we can hear her. And in a moment, we're gonna add Cam Howard to the conversation. And Mamadee, we hear you clearly.
Well, Cam Howard, is Kojo there?
Yes.
Yeah, I'm here.
And Cam Howard is backstage.
Not Cam
waiting.
Howard. Kojo's. This is his slot.
Right. He is.
Yeah, I'm here. Y'all don't look at my mouth. My lips swelled up last night.
Okay, this is
Kojo. You can't walk away.
Otherwise,
we won't hear you.
We'll get to you later, Cam. But this is Kojo's slot. How are you, Kojo?
I'm doing great. Fine. I got a swollen lip, so don't look at my mouth. Don't look at my mouth. Just listen to it.
Yeah, that's fine.
I can't see. I'm having glitches. I can't see anybody. I'm just on the phone.
Oh, okay.
But
well,
did you
I'm
hear?
Cool,
did you hear the names that we were never given until enslavement?
You said, did I hear?
Yeah, she was naming. She was naming the various names such as Negro, colored.
Oh yeah,
that we got right.
Yeah, I learned in Africa. First we were called blacks. Then we was, at the land of the blacks. Then we was called. What else were we called? We were called Negro.
Well, according to this banner that I brought back from Africa, it just says we were reclassified as African, Negro, colored, etc., which terms had never been used to identify ourselves because we all had tribal names. So, for the purpose of this program, where we tried to get in last week, is what are we going to name ourselves? It's going to be necessary for us to have a name consensus. We know we got Negro because it meant black in Spanish, and we got that from the Spaniards, who were among the founding fathers of the transatlantic slave trade. So that's where that came from. But we were given the names that we carry today are the names of our slave owners. There were no tribe called Smith, Browns, Jones, and all of these other names that we carry today. They are names that our slave owner gave us. And so some people, they want to keep those names. Those are the names on their birth certificates. Those are their legal names. Myself, in the old millennium, in 1999, along with Reverend Webb Evans and some others, we went to Israel. And I went into court and said, I no longer want that subjugated race name. It didn't belong to my father or his father from before then. I don't want that name that belonged to my slave owner. And any of the men that I married, they had slave owner names also. So I said, I want a name that gives me my Hebrew heritage. And that is what Yah, as in hallelujah, YHWH, is the actual Hebrew sacred name for God. There is no J, never was a J in the Hebrew in the Hebrew alphabet. You can go to the Hebrew alphabet, you'll find that that is true. So when it comes to reparations, we are the only people over here that are not immigrants, in that we came from a country, whether it was Jamaica or Haiti or Europe or Scotland or wherever, London. Everybody over here came from a country by choice, except the kidnapped captives from the continent. So we have to name ourselves. After 400 years, we should be able to do that. What do you think?
Yeah, is that a question for me?
Yes, it's a question.
Yeah,
And
I say,
please
but
identify yourself. Some people
yeah,
might not
Curtis.
have heard you last week.
Yeah, Curtis Kojo Morris is my name. But I can give you a quick story of how we arrived at, or how my grandfather arrived at the name Morrow. You know, my grandfather was 12 years old when the Civil War started. And he was born in 1849, and he lived till 1951. I was in the army when he passed. Now, what happened was he said he ran away from the plantation, him and two other boys, and they looking for the Union Army, and they found him, and he was too small or too young, one or the other, so they kept him in the camp, you know, running arrows and doing whatever, you know. But in the evening, the officers will have classes to teach the newly freed slaves how, you know, how to read and write, because they want everybody had to have a name. Prior to that, you know, he was just called boy in N-word or whatever they wanted. He was Mr. Jones boy. You know, I think Jones was Mr. Hay. Mr. Hay was on the plantation. So he said on the name giving day, they was all lined up. And when his turn came, that was officers, you know, Confederate, Union Army officers, they would write down their name. And they gave the slaves, ex-slaves, a choice. They could choose whatever name they want. But everybody, with 2 minutes, was choosing Morrow. And my grandfather, he also chose the name. He wanted to be George Washington too, you know, because everybody else was. And the officer said, no, you can't have that name because too many people got that name already. So you got to choose another name. So my grandpa, he was standing around scratching his head trying to figure out, you know, what his sub name was going to be, you know. So anyway, when other slaves, you know, they trying to get him to hurry up because everybody wanted their name. And anyway, he said, well, I'll come back tomorrow. And the officer said, you can't come back tomorrow. You got to take one now. Take a name now. And somebody said, well, why don't you take Morrow? And the officer said, yes. You heard what the man said. He said Morrow. That's what, you know, not slave.
Well,
So,
but that doesn't negate what I said. Most of us was given the name of the slave owner, and that is not a tribal name that was offered to the slaves, who, by the way, information, the Emancipation Proclamation did not free the slaves, nor could it free the slaves, because uh, the Dred Scott decision of 1857 was in full effect.
But
And
you know what,
it has,
Mamadee? You know what,
yeah,
Mamadee? A lot of African Americans had a situation like Kojo's, where there was a point where they were able to choose the name they wanted. So some of us who've been trying to trace back and figuring, okay, well, I'll just find the slave owner with this name. Like my great grandfather, he chose what was my maiden name, which was Charles. He actually ran away from his plantation and took a name that would disguise his identity, which happened to be the last name Charles. So a lot of people have names that are of English origin, and like you say, they're not of African origin. They're not a language of what would have been their particular community or ethnic group, but it was the name of their choice because at some point they were given a choice. You know, what do you want your last name to be? Because as you know, we didn't have a last name officially. So that just like with Kojo's situation, sometimes even though it's an English name or even an Irish name, it is.
But you know something that's interesting that you brought that up, because when they decided segregation laws were unconstitutional, not only because they caused serious harm, which is part of the definition of genocide, causing serious body or mental harm to members of the group. So that was by definition genocide. But they ruled that segregation laws were unconstitutional. First of all, they only existed to keep the status of the Negro down, not any other groups, but the status of the Negro down. But the fact that somebody else had decided what the rules were, that was segregationist within itself. So if somebody comes up and say, okay, here's a list of names, and none of them had anything to do with your history or your heritage, and again, they are giving you a list of names to select from. And again, we never consented to be kidnapped. My grandparents, because they were born before 1865, they were born in the chains of slavery. So when I said I am a crimes against humanity descendant, and we are, because it was already voted on by the United Nations that everybody wants their input, that slavery was always a crime against humanity. But instead of us claiming that as part of our identity, being crimes against humanity descendant and Jim Crow genocide survivors, because that until 1954, segregation laws were legal, but they only existed to keep the status of the Negro down. So any way you slice it, whether they gave you a list of European names to choose from, or you picked up a George Washington or Abraham Lincoln name on your own, these names were not ours as a kidnapped people. So that gets back to where we are today. What do we call ourselves? Because we cannot say, well, I love Marcus Garvey. Look at what he did for us, but he was a Jamaican and he came to this country by choice. He was an immigrant. We're the only
Hey,
ones over here that didn't come by choice. So when
Mama,
it comes to the names, what do the list that I gave, do you have another name to say that you would like to be called by, and tell us why?
are you talking to me?
Yes.
Yes. No, I'm not debate. I don't mean to be debating you. I'm not, because I
No, I'm
agree
not
with it too.
debating. I'm
And I
not
think we
debating
all know
either.
that. Yeah, but you
No.
gotta let me finish. Do I have another name? Well, in 1866, I was adopted by a paramount chief in Ghana, and they named me Kojo Achampong after his brother, his senior brother. And so I have another name, which is Kojo Achampong. So
And are
when I
you a
started,
citizen? Are you a citizen in Ghana when they gave you
yes,
that
well,
name?
the way I'm a citizen of the world. All I need is white man paper. I can go anywhere in the world that I feel and I will be accepted. It depending on what I have to offer, So I have a skill that can serve, that can enable me to be there And my skill is, I was a cobbler, ivory cut and all that. No, you got to have papers. You want to go somewhere. But I know, yet, OBB power. Now, I saw what me America. That means I'm an African that was born in America.
So you accept those reclassified names that was never used before
I don't know
we
what
got
you mean.
captured.
I don't understand what you mean.
Okay.
The name, the only name.
What I mean is, we as a people had tribal names. The June 18, 2009 U.S. Senate and Congress apology for enslavement, they say we took your names, your identity, and we took your heritage. They admit that in that apology. But I'm talking about reclassified as African, Negro, colored, etc. These terms were never used to identify the people that were kidnapped and brought here. They were never used then. So I'm saying now, if you go for your passport, I was asking about your citizenship because in 2018, we were told that Ghana was offering citizenship to us if we wanted it, but based on your DNA.
Yeah, well, I can't generalize. I can only speak for myself and for my family name. I went before the chief in 1972, the Agogo Henry, because I was thinking about nationalizing. And as some of the other expatriates, it wasn't too many expatriates living in Ghana at the time, because most of them had left, because of when the coup happened. That's another story. But one expatriate, he suggested, I was bouncing it off of the others, what do you think about me doing that? I'm trying to get somebody else's opinion. And one dude said, look, why don't you go and talk it over with your chief? The people who adopted you. So I went up to the village and I brought it up. And the chief said, well, look, by what authority do you have to give back what your ancestors fought and died for? And I didn't have no answer to that question, because he was also chastising one of his sons who had came here and had studied here and everything, and he had changed his name to John, whatever the last name, Kukunu. And so his father was asked, why do you do that? And his son told him the reason why he did it was because, he couldn't, the American couldn't pronounce his name, so he made it short. So anyway, the chief said to me, he said, look, that's not the Ashanti way. We don't give back. Damn, we don't give back. We expand. I think you know what I mean. Once they conquer some land or whatever, people, they add on. They add on. That's what made their empire so great. And so he said, why you need paper? You need paper for what? You need white man paper to travel. Okay, no problem. Ghanaians or Africans need passports and papers to travel too. Every country have to have some kind of document to travel, and so you got to have some paper. And so I felt that was the end of that. I think and that's been about 45 years ago. I still got the papers here somewhere. I'm going to look them up. Well, but I figure I'm not giving away nothing. I'm adding on too, because why should I? I don't have any reason. I have family in Ghana. Matter of fact, I go and visit them. I'm scheduled to go maybe this year. It depends on things. I have, so now I'm not condemning anyone else. I feel a person, if they feel that's what they want to do, they should be free to do it. I don't know why I'm so confused. So anyway,
Water.
Well,
yeah,
you know, I
Michigan
appreciate
water.
what you just said. However, what slavery was a collective. It didn't just happen to individuals making individual choices. It happened to a collective group of people, whether they were called Negroes or blacks who have no rights, whether they are emancipated or not in the Dred Scott decision. These names were given. And if we want to get reparations, we just can't say, well, I'm a citizen of the world, because we are going to have to say, hey, look, America didn't get started until 1776. So we can't get reparations from America from 1619. And we can't come up and just say, well, you're black and you came from a country and you're an immigrant over here, and you came from a country, you got a land and a language. Your ancestors didn't come in chains. So there is a difference in coming in chains and coming by choice from a country. So
Mamadee, I have a
these
question.
are
I have a question for, I guess, you and Kojo, and then Cam Howard be coming up shortly. One of the things that I consider when looking at the reparations question is that everybody that participated in it, it wasn't a race of people, it was individuals within a so-called race of people. And all of those individuals that participated in that enterprise, whether they were heads of countries or whether they were independent business people or whether they were hired by the independent business people who financed the operation, whether they were the individuals within the country that agreed to cooperate and even hired people to kidnap people, whether they were the shipbuilders, whether they were the financiers, the bankers, all of the people who participated, and it was a lot of people participating in this enterprise. All of them are now deceased. All of those people who participated in that are now deceased. Those souls are not presently on this earth. So who do we rightfully hold responsible for that enterprise and all of the people who were involved in it, all of the people who were
the government, the
and
government,
are also
the
now
government,
deceased.
the
Okay,
governments,
so if we
because
say the government, we have to say which government, because some of the
United
governments in
States,
Africa were complicit.
the United States, you asked the ones over here that you
Okay,
can't buy people, but if they wanted to buy people, they made the laws. The government of the United States of America is still over here, and they made the laws that said you are movable property. They made the laws that said they exist to keep the status down because you are a descendant of slaves. The law is still here, and it's just like the land. If somebody owns the land and they never cleared the deed or got it straightened out, then that rightful owner owns that land. So it's the same thing. The government did the laws, made the rules, and it is still here. And nobody else says that when it comes to anybody else. They just give them reparations like the Native Americans. They got exempt status, cultural rights, sovereignty, land, and they got money because none of the people that stole their land are still here. But the government is still here. And that is who you hold accountable. It's not that complicated. I think
okay.
we got
Well,
to come up for a break.
yeah, we got to come up for a break. And Cam Howard is on the line. I strongly suggest we bring him on. Don't make him wait another
Absolutely.
and as
Absolutely. And ask him that question too.
absolutely.
Would you want to take a picture?
We're going to take a quick break, and we'll be back. And if you're listening online and want to join this conversation, give us a call.
And thanks, Kojo, for being my guest.
Yeah, I'm not going. I'm not going. My niece want to take some pictures.
All right.
Right,
We'll be back
good.
after the break. And
Well, we thank you for giving us your segment.
Absolutely.
And for last week.
Yes. So we will be right back after this quick break. We want you to stick and stay. Don't stray away. We'll be back in a moment. So stay with us.
Picture of all that though.
Right. Okay.
All right. And
Dark it's gonna be.
Yeah, that should be. You know,
It's so dark.
like.
I'm trying to give it some. I'm trying to do some light where we can. I think maybe.
Hi,
I think we can do right here.
I started Tucson Essentials in 2015 because of a personal health journey. I was over-medicated and put on 19 different medications. And yes, I reversed all my chronic diseases using plant and energy-based healing. It was amazing. At Tucson Essentials, we support both consumers and businesses, and we do that with helping your employee or yourself with a food as medicine mindset. How Tucson Essentials supports businesses and consumers is we teach people about a food as medicine mindset. So we support people on how to support their own immune system, how to support their brain health, how to support their emotional well-being. And we do that all with plant and energy-based healing. Hey, it's time to take charge of your health. I'm Bianca, your holistic coach, and every Friday morning at 8 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time, I'm here on the Female Choices that will assist your evolution to abundant health. Bring you a spiritual chiropractic adjustment to bring you back into alignment. Join me every Friday morning at 8 a.m. and Sunday evenings at 8 p.m. for a time of unity, enlightenment, and low vibration. Shalom.
Hi, I'm Barbara.
I'm Cheryl.
And I'm Naima. We're three Black moms.
And in case you didn't notice the resemblance, we're also three sisters.
We're going to be coming to you every week, sharing our successes and our mistakes as we navigate our lives as moms, wives, sisters, daughters, and of course, Black women in today's world.
We'll talk about it all: race, politics, religion, economics, culture, and we'll take a look at everything from whether or not to use corporal punishment to how do you teach your children about sex.
Look for our upcoming book, Growing Up Charles. It's a personal story about our lives growing up in Maple Park on Chicago's South Side. I'm Barbara.
I'm Cheryl.
And I'm Naima. We're three Black moms. Follow us on Facebook and subscribe to our YouTube channel, Three Black Moms.
What happens when a group of people are kidnapped from their homes, smuggled away in chains, and held captive in a foreign land where they are tortured, raped, and forced to perform hard labor by the lash of a whip and under the constant threat of death? Slavery, the African American psychic trauma. What happened to the doctors, writers, scientists, builders, educators, and spiritual leaders from Africa's golden age? Who did they really capture and sell into slavery? Are all African Americans suffering from psychic trauma, because of a conspiracy to hide their true identities? Do you have psychic trauma? Take the test on page 22 of the book and see. Order it online today at www.naimalatif.com. That's www.naimalatif.com. And get your personally autographed copy of the book, Slavery, the African American Psychic Trauma. You believe in freedom, and not risk until it's gone. We believe in freedom.
All right, we are back. And we can see, and let's open the mic for Mamadee. Make sure we can hear her as well. All right. Okay, I think you might have to unmute your mic, Mamadee.
Cam, are you there?
And let me unmute him.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, we hear you, and we've unmuted. I think we unmute Cam. All right, that's all of it. All right. Okay, here we go. Yes, and
Cam, are you there?
Yes,
I am here.
Okay. Cecilia was supposed to be in this time slot.
Is she on the line, or
she said that if it was possible, because she did have some, so it's okay to come up now if you would.
All right. Well, we've got Cam on the live line here.
Greetings, everyone.
Greetings. Uh-oh. There we go. Okay. Yes. Hear you loud and clear. Go right ahead.
Were you posing that last question to me?
Oh, yes. Yeah. And I'll say it again for those who might not have heard it. You know, all of the people who were involved in the slave trade, be it people in the government, people who were in business, the financiers, the shipbuilders, the people who were hired to capture the people, the jailers, all of those people, those individuals are all deceased. And they not only were part of the United States government, you had governments in the countries where people were captured. You had officials who were complicit and even participated and even allowed it. Certain countries where the ruling parties were part of the process, and they also got paid for selling people into slavery, into captivity. So there are people on both sides, but all of those individuals who were involved are now deceased. So who can rightfully be held responsible, especially since all of those who actually were enslaved, those who suffered the trauma of being separated from their families and unwillingly shipped abroad, they are also deceased. Now what we have is descendants of them, but the actual people that were violated, they are deceased, and the people who did the violation are deceased. So who do we hold responsible, and who deserves some type of compensation based on that reality that all the people involved are now deceased?
That's a whole lot. And I can get to it, but it's not just a simple answer. But before I get to it, I was really fascinated by Brother Kojo's story on how he got the Morrow name. Yeah. And it was fascinating. It was, just a testament to the self-determination that we practice and still practice, that we attempted to hold on to our ability to name ourselves and define ourselves, even in this stolen land we were in. And, I just give honor to our brother for sharing that story. I wish you would have had an opportunity to continue, because I wanted to put that in my memory so I could share it later as I talk about how we determine our own reality in this country.
Yeah.
But to answer your question, to start off, we have to say that America is a corporation. And the 13 original colonies were corporations. They were corporate charters given to each colony was a charter given by one of the European states, more particularly Britain. But the other colonies were given by the Netherlands. In Florida, there was a Spanish charter, but these were all corporations, all governments, corporations that were given that later became governments. And so we know that a corporation lives forever. Corporation does not die until there's a document to say that this corporation no longer exists or it goes bankrupt. And we also know that every corporation sometimes is taken over or bought by other corporations. And so what we had in 1776 was a takeover or a blending, if you will. It was a war against the chartering states in Europe that gave them their corporate charter. And they warred against them collectively and created a new corporation called the United States. And so those corporations that were in existence became part of America. And when you buy a corporation or you take over a corporation, you take over its debts and you take over its assets.
Okay.
And so the debts of the 13 colonies transferred over with the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution of the United States. They took over the debts as well as they took over the assets. All of the Africans who were enslaved, who had assets on the books on those 13 colonies and those corporations, they moved right over into the United States asset column. Mm-hmm. And so we don't start with, now we only start in 1776. We don't even start with 1619. We start in the 1500s when our ancestors was first stolen and brought into Spanish Florida. Even before 1619, they were brought up the Mississippi from the French. So we can go back to when these colonies were first established and target those individuals, those companies, which are now nation states, and target those nation states who enslaved our ancestors. Now, because the 13 so-called original colonies became one corporation under the United States Constitution, we target the United States government primarily because it is a continent-wide, a coast-to-coast, wide entity from which most of our people live and hold these papers of citizenship, as Brother Kojo stated. So we target the United States primarily, but there's also a claim for Spain. There's also a claim for the Netherlands. There's also a claim from Germany. There's also a claim from France, because they also individually held territories as well as held our people in captivity in this country. And so that's another story, but that claim can be made. And when you talk about who all is liable, all of them are liable. Because what we're talking about also is crimes against humanity. And crimes against humanity are usually those crimes that are allowed to take place within a nation state. And so the nation is guilty of crimes of that magnitude because they allowed them to take place, or they actually aided in them taking place, like genocide. That's why Germany, the German state, but it was also German corporations and other things in Germany who were held liable and accountable for the genocide of the Jewish people during World War II. So crimes against humanity are state-sponsored crimes, or state-level crimes. So that's why governments are targeted, but also institutions, corporations, and individual families who also participated in those crimes under the sanction of the government are also targeted. Now, we talk about the next question is who shall receive reparations, because the perpetrators are all dead, and the victims of enslavement are all dead. And what you have now is just the descendants. So when I talk about the perpetrators, we're looking at governments, we're looking at families, we're looking at institutions. Institutions, corporations, and the government are still in existence. Even though the people who ran the corporations, ran the institutions, ran the government at that particular time are no longer in existence, those institutions, governments, and corporations are still in existence. They are, in business law, fictional legal persons that, again, do not die unless there's some resolution to end their life, or they go bankrupt and they end it in that way, or the state itself retracts their charter. That's when a life ends. But these are perpetual entities. And so they are responsible. So we can forget about that, they're no longer alive, or the people who ran these corporations, governments, and institutions are no longer alive. The institutions are alive. And so we can bring claim to them.
Okay, I'd like to ask the question, Cam. There is no statute of limitation on crimes against humanity.
That's correct.
And also, when you're causing serious bodily or mental harm to members of the group, like the United States of America admitted in the Brownsville Board of Education decision that it caused serious harm to young Negro Black children, not anybody else. But by definition, that's genocide.
That's correct.
He used the correct terminology because it's harming us. Is that we're including everybody in on our stuff. Jews do not include you in on their Holocaust. When they're talking about Holocaust, they're talking about the Jewish Holocaust. Nobody else is in. When it comes to us, it's not.
That's not actually true, Mamadee. That's not actually true.
But if you're chained to the bottom, it doesn't matter the location that vote is. So what I'm saying, my question to you is, are we doing harm to ourselves by not, as Reverend Dr. Prophet King said, getting the language straight, which identifies us and our experience from other people, and that ought to be okay. Why isn't it?
So yeah, you're right, getting the language straight. And that's why I had to push back on that 1776 issue. We have to get the language straight that these are corporations, and corporations have a perpetual life, and corporations inherit the liabilities as well as the assets of their predecessor corporations. So we have to get the language right, exactly. So when people talk about let's start in 1776, no, that does not have the language correct. The language is incorrect if you're saying you just want to start from when America began, because America began when it purchased or fought or liberated the colonies that were in existence, that were enslaving our ancestors, and was part of that historical crime. And so therefore America began actually when those corporations, those original chartered colonies began. So let me go back and just answer the question around who should receive reparations. Because again, we got to get the language right. You brought up crimes against humanity. There were 3 periods of crimes against humanity in this country committed by people who we call white, who classify themselves as white, and who have classified us as Black. One was the period of enslavement from 1553 or 1515, depending on what date you want to start in Florida, up until 1865. The period of enslavement, Africans and their descendants were enslaved. Then you had the period of Jim Crow, apartheid. Get the language right. You're absolutely right. That was apartheid. Apartheid means separate development and backed by force. And so in America, it was called Jim Crow, but it was actually apartheid. And so that was from the end of the Reconstruction, going on during the Reconstruction, but officially at the end of Reconstruction up until 1865 and 1965 and the Civil Rights Act. At that particular time, you had African descendants who were enslaved in America, and you had African descendants who had been enslaved in the Caribbean, South, and Central America, who had came into America, still had been enslaved somewhere in the Western Hemisphere. However, they experienced apartheid in America for that period of close to 100 years. And then the third period of crimes in this country is the neo-apartheid era, which began in 1965 and is still in existence today. This is where you've had, in the last 20 years, an influx of continental Africans. When I say an influx, we're talking, about 1 million or so, which is less than 5% of our population of Blacks in this country. And so they've experienced these neo-apartheid crimes like predatory lending, like mass incarceration, like police terror, etc. And so when you talk about who should receive reparations, every person in this country can claim victimization of crimes against humanity. It just determines what period are they claiming victimization from. Because if you're alive today, you are experiencing white supremacy domination, which is, we know, affects us on the genetic level as well as on the psychological level. The issue of weathering and stress. That young brother who was murdered in Grand Rapids, he ran out of terror. The terror that he experienced was not one of that situation. But because he was so terrorized of thinking what might happen to him, he took off and ran, and it actually resulted in what exactly he thought he feared from Jump Street. So he was experiencing the terror of white supremacy before he was murdered. So every person of African descent or continental, either continental Africa, they come here as immigrants, don't matter when they come here, how they come here. We don't say if someone else come here, they can be victimized by this country and not have a claim. Any person that's African or of African descent who's in America experiences white supremacy domination and the terror and historical trauma that comes along with it. Can a continental African who just got here 5 years ago or 5 days ago, can he make a claim for slavery reparations? No, of course not, because he was not here for the period of slavery reparations. Can he make a claim for apartheid reparations? No, of course not, because he wasn't in this country during that particular. But he make a claim for psychological trauma and historical trauma and the weathering that he experienced the minute he got off the plane. He became a social outcast in this country. Now, the type of remedy that we're fighting for slavery era crimes is a whole lot different from the type of remedy that someone can get when they just got off the plane yesterday. It's totally different. So let me just summarize this in saying, let me just summarize this in one sentence. Let me summarize this in 2 sentences. Let me summarize this, Mamadee, in 2 sentences, and I'm gonna stop.
Mamadee, he's trying to finish his sentence, and then he can hear your statement. Go right ahead.
Anyone who comes to this country and has been victimized by white supremacy can make the demand that they deserve redress. When it comes to the remedy is specific to the era and type of crimes that were committed against them. They weren't here in enslavement. They can't they can't take part in slavery era remedies. They weren't here during Jim Crow. They can't take part in Jim Crow era remedies. If they weren't here, if they just got here, they can take part in these post neo-apartheid era injuries. However, those remedies are going to be different. But you cannot say you for justice, and you say a crime was committed against someone, and because they don't have ancestral legacy of those crimes, that they don't deserve justice. Any crime committed against a Black person on this planet deserves justice.
Do you think all the Jewish people, whether they were part of the Jewish Holocaust or not, is entitled to reparation? Everybody claims their own portion. When I'm talking to Moorish Americans, they say, well, we were never slaves. We were already here. So then they come with that argument. Then there are other people that say, well, during the 1500 period, it was indentured servants. It wasn't slavery based on race or based on being called chattel. So when we bring forth all of these different causes, and I'm not saying that if you come to this country by choice, did anybody force you to come from Jamaica and you're calling yourself Jamaican because that's your country, and you came over here by choice, you are by definition an immigrant. And it's not the same. And what we keep doing is say, well, if you got a black face, they don't ask you about your pedigree. And that's true. That you get the same treatment, but you don't have the same history and the same legacy and the same claim to reparations. And we've got to decide, what are we going to call ourselves? Because that's when we came on. All of these names, Africa, Negro, colored, they were never used before enslavement. We had tribal names, and the United States Apology for Slavery and Jim Crow laws says they took our names away from us and our heritage away from us.
Well, Mamadee, Cam had to step away for a second, but I have a question for Kojo regarding when you finish that, and because I want to let you know that Cam stepped away for a second.
Okay, thanks.
But Kojo's still here listening.
They already admitted what they did to us. So it's not like we have to prove that portion of it. And the fact of the matter is, coming from a legacy of the ones who came and changed and their ancestors is just not the same as coming to this country by choice, seeking a better way of life. And we have got to get all of that straight. And I hear where he's coming from. Then let's go back to Europe, and because the Great Britain, they passed on their debt, but they didn't. It was a takeover. It was a war. So that is a different legal approach.
Well, I have a question about that, Mamadee, especially because I know of people from specific African countries, Nigeria being one of them, Ghana being another, where they know that there are families that got their wealth from the sale of slaves, from the sale of captured prisoners of war, in putting them into slavery. And they know that there are chiefs that made deals, in other words, government officials that made deals. So that particular entity, whether it's incorporated or passed down through family lineage, whatever the case may be, their family got wealthy from the sale of other human beings to the Europeans who were planning to ship them abroad. So my question is, and I'm going to ask Kojo this because you've been in Ghana, Kojo. What is the attitude of those who may have known about the participation, the willing participation of some families in the slave trade? Did they see that as, a war victory? Did they see it as a natural result of, certain families either being having lost the war, or certain families just, being unfortunate? Did they see it as a crime against humanity? Is there a regret or not? What did you observe in the attitude of those who benefited? So that
Kojo had a segment, and I would appreciate me making the point, getting back to our theme.
Well, Mamadee, I let you know that Cam had to step away. That's why I asked Kojo that question so you can answer.
And I will continue, if you don't mind. This is Wisdom with Mamadee. I'd like to continue because this is the second time we've been trying to get some basic
I know, but since Kojo is taking up his time and he's an elder, very, very respected, can he answer that question and then we can bring Cam back?
Yes. Okay, from the stories that we had many discussions on that same issue.
Mamadee, please let him answer because he's got wisdom, and I mean he's a little older than all of us. We're not gonna get this wisdom forever. Please let him answer this because he has some knowledge that we don't have. So please let him answer that, and then we can bring back Cam. And then please continue your point.
But I was in the midst of a question, and I would like to answer my question, please.
Okay. Well, let's take this break. Let's take this break and then come back, and then we can do the last segment. We'll be right back. And Mamadee, I really, you have some wonderful guests. I really want, especially people who like Kojo. I mean, he's been on this earth a long time, and that's living history. And we want to make sure we get the insight from those who have been here and have traveled and can tell us some things we don't know. Anyway, we'll be right back after this quick break. So stay with us.
The Female Solution Global Radio TV Show invites you to an invigorating conversation with our team of hosts Monday through Friday, 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. Central Time. Start your week with Monday Morning Mindfulness with Zelda Speaks. Tuesdays, Self-Care with Jody Susan. Wednesdays, Repairing Broken Families with Naima Latif and co-host Kareem Hamid. Thursdays, Soulful Solutions with Dr. Debbie Green. And Fridays, Health and Wellbeing with Beata. Saturdays, tune in 12 noon to 2 p.m. Central Time. First Saturday, Success Strategies with Jana. Second Saturday, Wendy Williams Esquire on relationships. Third Saturday, Move Around with Deborah. And fourth Saturday, Wisdom with Mamadee. Join us Sundays, 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. Central Time for Soul Purpose Healing with Beata. Call in and comment 515-605-9325. Press 1 to speak to the host and be a part of the solution.
Hi, this is John Alexander.
And I'm Naima Latif. Meet people like you who are making a positive difference in the world.
Big difference.
Watch us every day on The Media Connection at www.youtube.com/The Media Connection TV.
YouTube it. We'll see you soon.
Help you restore serenity to your life. At Serenity Family Social Services, we understand that good mental health is the result of emotional well-being. Our goal is to assist you and your family in removing emotional distress and restoring harmony and balance to your lives. We offer individual, couples, and family counseling. I'm Howard Williams, CEO of Serenity Family Social Services. Call us today at 312-315-4820. Do you want to live in a world without war? Join our global peace movement. Heavenly Culture World Peace Restoration of Light transcends culture, religion, ideology, and other boundaries to achieve peaceful harmony in the global society. HWPL is committed to bringing world peace and cessation of war through peaceful dialogue between religious groups. I am Director Shin-Suk Kim of the HWPL Chicago branch of North America. Join us for our next gathering. Call 773-580-1501 and be a part of the movement for world peace. Email us at chicagohwpl@gmail.com. Talking to you, we do believe in freedom, and I really don't care until
All right, we are back. And in addition, Mama, you also have two other callers on the line as well. And Cam is back, so we're gonna make sure we coordinate and get everybody in.
Sure, can I
go right
elaborate?
ahead? Yeah, and then Mamadee has a question, and then we got Cam back. Yeah, go right ahead.
Okay. Yeah, sure. We talked about it quite often, because, you know, I lived up there in the bush, up in the Ashanti region. And they were some of the biggest slave sellers, and also the Evids, too. And Dahomey was where they had a king that was his main goal. That was to sell it. He sold more people than the law of average. Their logic behind it is when one tribe go to war against another tribe, and the victor claims all the spoil, like all the peoples that they just conquer is his slave. Now that's the word they use, slave, but they don't mean the same kind of slavery that was practiced here. Over there, if one tribe go to, attacked by another tribe, that means you're their property, in other words. But after 2 or 3 years, you can actually become something like a citizen. You could actually marry, and you could even become a chief, like a sub-chief or something. And there was never anyone that was able to return from America and South America to enlighten the people there of just how they were treated as slaves. So they didn't know. It was just like an exchange, or it was like, hey, that was the commerce of the day there. Like you sell cattle or something, you see. Maybe you don't like someone. They may have a better farm than you, and you can actually trade them, and you can hijack them, ambush them, and sell them to another tribe. You can sell it to the white people, because the white folks wasn't gone all up there in the bush looking for us. So it was most of the coastal people that was actually doing the selling of the people. But it's so in fact we call it like old money, like the Rockefeller money, money that wasn't on, like from the present generation. Sure, we have a lot of millionaires here that earn that million. I'm talking about whites, right? But also we have the same thing applied to African people who inherited money. And so that's there. And so when someone comes along and asks them to give it back or to even share it, we fought for the last 300-400 years just to get an equal share of what we earn, like civil rights and so forth. We fought all different, the Civil War, and I guess that's about the Civil War, and especially black, soldiers and, ex-soldiers and so forth. So it's something like if I come to you and I say, hey, I just discovered that your great-great-great-grandfather enslaved my great-great-great-grandfather, had him working for 2 years and he never paid him. So you owe me. You should pay me. You should pay your father's or grandparents' debt. Okay, so now it's in the courts. I can understand why the Japanese got theirs, because they claimed it right away. They claimed it, and it wasn't, I don't know, it couldn't have been over a period of 30 or 40 years, right? But then there was a lot of people that came here, like the Chinese, and they was misused. They caught hell out there building a railroad out there, but they're not talking about it. It's good for us to talk about it and discuss it. It's good to be aware of our history, because being aware of your history, you get a sense of entitlement. like white folks, they're born with that sense of entitlement. If they're not, they're taught it from the moment they come out of their mother's womb. When they learn to talk, at the age of 12, for sure, you don't play with them people. Like you can ask a Caucasian, why you don't like black people? What they ever did? They cannot give you an answer. They can't give you. The best answer they can give you is, well, that's what my parents taught me, and that's what they do. Because I remember, I'm 89 years old now, but I remember when, that girl is too black. I be shooting at a little girl, we both 10 years old, I like her. And her mother would say, well, no, he's too black, leave that, And so that's and even now we're doing it, it's being practiced now. A fair complexion Afro American, it's kind of difficult for them to even claim that they are African American, because it's, Whitey did a number on us. But it got this country to where it is now. Now the country is boasting like they're the greatest country, the most powerful, but it wasn't given. People came here and took this country from somewhere and killed most of them off until a few good people, they develop a conscience later on. So it's like, first thing, we have to have a plan of those who are seeking reparation. Let me say this and I'll cool down for a minute. I remember my grandfather and uncles, we didn't have television sets, so maybe somebody might have a radio. So our biggest entertainment was when the old folks started telling us stories, about how life was. Grandpa was good at that, He said, look, don't mention 40 acres and a mule to me, because he was living during that time, right? Mm-hmm. When that proposal was made to give the free slaves, 40 acres and a mule. He said, I don't want no damn, man, that's why I ran away from the plantation, to get away from them. And that's why he sent his sons, all 7 of them, up north here in Chicago and Detroit, because they didn't want to be no farmer. They say they got tired of smelling mules farting 18 hours a day. So they, I'm using their words. I got a swollen lip, so it's not coming out too well. But people, and that's why I don't want to be out doing them kind of job that people are doing. So I had to educate myself, in order to be able to do something that I feel proud of doing. So as for the other point on the reparation here, most African countries, for any born Afro-American or African in the diaspora, can actually go to any country in Africa. You never hear one being deported because they don't have a visa. They don't do that. They say you just keep it. The 11 years that I lived in Ghana, from 1965 to 1976, I only had I had the 3-week visas when I went there, right? They couldn't give me a visa because they said, well, look, man, you don't fit into no category. So you can stay as long as you want to, as long as you can take care of yourself, but you got to be able to employ someone else, like 1 or 2 people. So that's why I learned to trade, carving. I could carve there, but as long as I wasn't carving the same features, size ornaments and, sculpture pieces that the Ghanaians and African was, I'm safe. So what I do, I could do many to carve, from carving. So that applies to any African American or any Black person in this hemisphere, as long as even if you're a porter, a custodian labor, because they need people to come and train people how to maintain a place. It's a big problem because we hear about buildings deteriorating because, people, you got a group of people who are farmer and hunter, so they don't know how to clean no house, so you got to teach them how, you got to teach everything. So it's a lot, when you really dig into it deeply.
It's not as simple as we think. It's
not as simple.
White folks bad, black folks good. It's not that simple. No, so Mamadee, Cam is back, and you've got a couple of callers on the line. Did you want to take your callers? Did you want to ask a question of Cam or?
Well, I think we should take the callers.
Okay, well, let's go to area code. I'm going to take 919-606. Area code 919-606. Please state your name, where you're calling from, and your question or comment for our host and guest.
Hi. Alan?
Yes, area code 919. I'm sorry, say your name again.
Alan, Baltimore, Maryland.
Oh, Alan from Baltimore, Maryland. Okay, Alan.
Yeah, you're speaking about reparation. If a judge don't hand me my check in my hand, all that is non-binding because they don't even want judge. Look how they include the Supreme Court justice, the highest court of the land. They feel sorry for you. That's what I'm saying. They give it to you. My great grandfather did this black man wrong, so I'm gonna be different. I evolve with the changes, so I'm gonna feel sorry for them. When they hand me my reparation check, I hope it's a good, impartial judge to hand it to me.
Alan?
Okay.
When it comes to reparations, it's not self-evident. It's total right, it's poverty, it's land, and it's money. Just like that, it's given to a people to make them whole. And were you aware of the ordinance that Alderman Dorothy Tillman put in to disclose companies that had slave holdings, such as Chase Bank? And my concern is that if I have never seen a white man before, and I painted my face in ritual dances, and then I took my white face off. But if I've never seen a white man before, I really didn't speak his language. And when he had a cannon, and I'm used to fighting with my spear, I've got my spear and you've got your spear, and we're in our tribal war. But when somebody comes in with a cannon that can blow away a whole village, it's a different ball game. Just like with the natives, I got bows and arrows, you got bows and arrows. But when somebody comes in with a Gatling gun, it's a whole different ball game. So we need to make sure we're not saying some official came over from Chase Bank and I saw your language or not, whether I ever saw you a white face or not. We sat down and we negotiated this money transaction, and I sold my own people. Whoever you could get that rope around became your captive. Chief and chief's children and everybody went. And I'd like for Cam to address that.
Right. And then after Cam, you got another caller, area code 314. We'll come to you after Cam addresses that.
Sister, can you repeat Mamadee's question? I got too much feedback for me to understand her question.
She was saying that that the way it happened with the warfare, when Europeans came in basically with superior weapons, they had, they're coming against people who were fighting with spears and arrows, and they're coming in with cannons. So when they got ready to round up people, that include everybody, man, woman, child, chief, the regular people, everybody. So they basically, she was saying the domination of the Europeans militarily is what changed that whole system of what Kojo was talking about. You know, you'd have the inter-tribal kind of capturing people, and then, you know, there might be a couple of years of enslavement, but then you could get your citizenship. It was just a different thing. So she wanted you to speak to that, you know, the whole annihilation that came with superior weaponry.
Yeah, I can't add anything to that. You know, that's a fact. You know, I mean, we had, you know, superior military skills, but they had superior military weapons. And, you know, to attest for that is, you know, when the so-called Seminole Wars, those were really African wars, you know, wars against, that's what the last general stated. You know, they fought down in Florida for over almost 100 years, and they were not able to defeat them. And the last general, General Jessup, says, who has some modicum victory, some modicum success with them, he said, the reason we haven't had any success because we've been fighting this was an Indian war. This was an African war. So we have shown that we had superior military skills, but just didn't have the weapon. And this is the weaponry and the desire to kill that is superior among Europeans. You know, that both of those together, the weaponry and this desire to kill, to just, you know, annihilate human beings is something that they're second to none with. And most people, you know, on the African continent, even when they were going through some of those wars, they got to a point where, you know, they just gave up because it was too bloody, and they just shut it down. You know, we're not going to just keep killing each other. We'll just shut this down and see how we can go back to negotiation. But that's not the European way. And so, you know, that spirit of death and the superior weaponry is what did us in, and it's what's doing us in today, because they still have the superior. There's not one armaments manufacturer on the African continent. There's only one military school on the African continent, and that's in Nigeria. And so it's still, they've taken away our military skill, as well as we don't have the military armament, and certainly we don't have the desire to kill that they do. So until we learn, you know, these three things and come up with a plan of action to address them in a victorious manner, you know, the domination would exist. But that doesn't stop us from fighting for redress and resources to do some repair of our people while we come up with these plans for liberation.
And then if I could add a word to that, look, like I said before, you know, that's why this country is the greatest and most powerful country in the world, because of guns. The same thing in Africa, you know. The Ashanti, they used to talk, they love to talk, especially those elders. You know, they talk about days when they was fighting the white, okay? I mean, they was physically fighting. They said they had to trick them. You know, they would dig pits. And and then they would fill them with snakes and spikes and things. See? And then they'll send one guy, maybe 2 or 3 people out to, you know, to make faces and agitate the white, I mean, the British soldier. The British soldier get mad and they go charging and they're in the pits. They had the Ntuntu, they had mosquitoes. You know, the mosquito took away a whole lot of people there.
Well, yeah, there's definitely a lot of strategies that were used. We got another caller. We got 2 more callers. Let me see if I can squeeze in, and because you've raised some points about that. Area code 314-381. Introduce yourself to our listening audience and give us your thoughts.
It's Bianchi. Mosquitoes killed blacks too when they went back to Africa in the late 1700s, in the early 1800s. Well, that was just the thing. And they were manufacturing weapons. They was hammering iron into machetes and spear tips. So people don't go to war and want to fight heads up. They use things to their advantage. And there was all sorts of slavery. Ghana had at least 5 different forms of slavery, which include sacrifice and also chattel slavery. I mean, it's just the way it was. They were human beings. They were dealing in slavery 1,000 years before they ever met anybody with white face. It was human beings. This whole issue about reparations, who should receive it? Well, that's going to be, why you seek reparation from the federal government? Federal government has no policing power over the states. If you want to seek reparations, you better go after those states. because they was American citizens and they were not afforded due process as stipulated in the 14th Amendment. And your 40 acres in the mule. Well, you wasn't citizens. Exactly. And the 40 acres in the mule, that was Indian land. It was Creek land. Here we go. When you lose, you snooze, you lose. Superior weapons, you take over. Well, Indians also had, Mamadee, I listen to everybody who say things that go along with your narrative. You never cut them off. But so when somebody come on with a different opinion, a different view, you cut them off. When I'm coming on, can I have my due process, please?
We got about 2 minutes before we have to wrap up.
The courtroom, and you have an opportunity to be a guest and have your full half hour. What I'm saying is that when everybody goes to the government to get reparations because they are the ones that make the rules and have the military and the law and the banking systems and all the systems on their side. So you don't go to get states' rights when it was the government that made these enslavement laws that the states had to follow. And that's not my opinion, that's a historic fact.
Mamadee, you've got one more caller. You want to squeeze in? They got about 30 seconds. Area code 111-111. You got to talk fast. You got about 30 seconds before we got to wrap up. Go right ahead.
Okay, no problem. I just want to get straight to the meat. I'm so glad in the same time for leading in Cobra up to this point where we have a chance to actually put it before Congress and the Senate for once after some 30 years. But I did want to notate when Cobra started some over 3 decades ago. We were there at the beginning when we first had the first meeting for the Chicago chapter to even be found. It's interesting. Mamadee was there. We actually went to Congress all those decades ago when John Conyers first started that journey. And we were in Congress lobbying. And at the time, people had their minds on the money. But nonetheless, just to add to history, even back then, Mamadee said, hey, it's not just the money. It's sovereignty, culture rights, and it's culture rights, sovereignty, and land. You get additional. It's not just money, as people don't understand. But I just wanted to notate that. You spoke about history. Over 30 years ago, when you're standing with the people with the minds that try to get something done, it takes over 30 years later before you even get up to the front page. Can you imagine it?
All right.
Thank you very much for tuning in. Everybody that contributed, we thank you very much. And in conclusion, I just want to say one thing. When in 1970 and the Jewish Holocaust, they got land, they got a whole country, and that country belonged to somebody before they took it over. But they were entitled to their own space. Reparations is not limited to a check. It is to make a people whole. So I thank you for listening to Women in Support of Daughters on Motherhood Preparation. That is what the acronym for wisdom 60 seconds here. And I thank you all very much for listening and suffering through the glitches and what have you.
We got it done. Great show, Mamadee. Thanks so much. Thanks to all the guests and listeners and contributors. Join us tomorrow for Soul Purpose Healing with Viata, 7 p.m. Central, 8 p.m. Eastern, right here on the Female Solution Global Radio TV show. And until that time, continue to shine your light.
Yeah. All right.
We've come to the end of our show today, but you can hear every show in the archives at www.blogtalkradio.com/the-female-solution. You can also hear today's show on the Female Solution Facebook page. Go to www.facebook.com/the-female-solution. Leave your comments about today's show. You can always reach me on my website at www.naimalatif.com. That's www.naimalatif.com. Watch our TV shows, listen to our radio shows, order our books, and be sure to get your copy of the book, The Female Solution. On behalf of our team of radio hosts, I'd like to thank all of you who participated in today's discussion. And to our global family listening from all around the world, we say thank you. To our family in China, Sheshe, India, Zanyaba, Japan, Arigato, Korea, Kamsamnida, Russia, Spasiba, Germany, Danke, Poland, Dziękuję, France, Merci, Spain, Gracias, Italy, Grazie, Egypt, Shukran, Ghana, Medasi, Nigeria, Eshe, South Africa, Yabonga, Senegal, Geret, Kenya, Asante, Israel, Toda, Pakistan, Shukriya, Afghanistan, Tashakur, Saudi Arabia, Shukran. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Thank you. And may peace be upon you and the mercy of God and God's blessings.